Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the Equanimity Sounds podcast. I'm your host Kyle J.E. and this is brought to you by Tranquil Road Records. Today I am with the singer-songwriter Justy from New York.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of this and just discuss things. So,
Right now, Justy has 3 songs out. One's called Later, one is called Try, and one is called Insecure. All
yes.
great songs.
Thank you.
Go check them out, everyone. And what else do you have coming for us?
So, as you mentioned, I have those 3 singles that are available now. For the past kind of 2 years, I've been trying to piece together a record that could kind of be indicative of, the different sounds I was trying to develop and really hone in on. So now I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of almost done with that record. It's going to be called Soul Food, an album, because people who have been following me for a while would know I had a Soul Food mixtape on SoundCloud a long time ago, but I kind of wanted to piece together an album, and it was just fitting to stay with Soul Food because that's kind of how I feel music can be sometimes, kind of like feature soul. Yeah. So, so that is the project that I will be having released this fall, either end of October or, sometime in November, but definitely this year. Like, I know people are like, when are you going to drop the project? When are you going to drop the project? So it's definitely coming, and I'll have a bunch of different visuals out associated with that. So I'm really, really excited for the fall. I feel like I'm kind of like most creative during the fall time, so I'm excited for that.
I'm definitely excited to hear it.
Thank you.
Are they all originals on the album?
They're all going to be original songs. I might even have something I produced on there, which is like kind of a first for me because I don't really dabble in production that much, but all original songs, all written by me, engineered by Ryan Pearson, who's been a kind of like a long time collaborator with me, and a bunch of different productions on there as well. So it's really going to be a nice eclectic mix of sounds, but of course at the root of it is kind of like my jazz hop passion, and it's going to be really good. I'm really excited to share it with people.
I'm super excited to hear that. Like I said, could you tell me a little bit about the writing process for all those songs that are on there? Did you write them like all like similar ways, or did they all come together in their own special way?
Yeah, it's interesting because they all kind of definitely did develop in their own natural way. I remember just in terms of Try and Later, I wrote and recorded those 2 in the same day. So that was just a very like kind of inspirational day for me because I had a lot to kind of write about. But as I mentioned earlier, I've been recording for about 2 years. So it's been a gradual process with me just kind of, hearing something I like here and there and then kind of composing something around that. For me with writing, I usually almost always go and listen to productions first, and for me, it's always kind of felt like songs have written themselves. So if a production is so compelling, oftentimes it feels like the song is writing itself because everything's kind of coming at ease. And in many ways, that's kind of how this project has been. That's been nice in the 2 years, because if you're working on something for so long, it can kind of feel rewarding when things kind of all just kind of gel together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, so I recorded Try and Later in the same day. Okay. I believe I recorded I actually recorded those songs in the winter. So cool. So I recorded those songs in the winter, and kind of just knew, especially with Try, I kind of knew that was a song that was going to be really, really impactful for what I was doing. And I've noticed a kind of trend. The songs that seem easiest to me are usually the songs that end up doing really well. So that was a song that kind of happened really, really easily and smoothly. And I started out by, I just started off with the melody of Try in my head just as a word, and I wrote around that word and that melody. So that's kind of what happened with that record.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
You said like that one just came like a lot easier. Is that,
Hmm.
would you say most of the songs on your album are the same way?
Um, I think that I think yeah, I think that I would say that. That's not to say that I went through kind of a month of not writing anything, and this is coming from me who, during the initial conception of the project, when I was recording really heavily during the winter, I was recording like every single weekend, right? So I did go through a patch where I kind of didn't record for like a month and a half, and I guess part of that was because I was, filming visuals and also trying to, figure out when I would release Try or when I would release later Insecure. And Insecure was the first single that I wrote, but Insecure, the birth of Insecure came after months of me not writing. So I hadn't written for months, and I heard this production by Lug Soda, who's another great producer from Brazil, but I had heard the production, and just something about the progression of the chords really just latched on to me, and that kind of took me out of like my writing retirement in a sense, because I just wasn't inspired prior to that, and I didn't really have the intent of making an album. Like I never sat down and was like, I think I should make an album now, like it kind of just happened because I heard that beat. So that beat like definitely kind of started it all, and I was able to get back into the kind of naturalness of writing. It's kind of like, when you're riding a bike, if you haven't rid a bike for a long time, there may be that initial like kind of rustiness, but eventually you get back into it.
Yeah, that's always nice when things just come naturally. Like you're not
Right.
forcing it. You're not
Right.
working for a deadline. You're just doing it because it feels right.
Right. And that's, probably why I've been working on this for like 2 years, like I never wanted to feel like I should just release this because I should have music out. I should have, content out for people to buy into or to keep my followers up or whatever reason, like we're pressured to constantly put art out. It should happen organically, because everything you put out, you want it to speak to the best parts of your creativity.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're
Yeah.
really making something you're proud of.
Right.
That's amazing.
Right.
Do you have any like stories about specific songs? Right, like I know some of your songs have a lot of like meaning behind them. It's not just like catchy like words or phrases that like
Right.
some other pop songs are.
Right.
But could you, I don't know, any insight?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think let's talk about kind of Try and Later, because I think both of those kind of definitely had a story behind while I was writing it too. So with Insecure, again, I discussed how I was kind of at a point where I wasn't writing a lot. So here I am feeling really low about my artistry, feeling really insecure about my artistry, comparing myself to other artists who are maybe more active or who had more music out, and not feeling talented enough, not feeling different enough, not feeling unique enough, So I was literally sitting there thinking, like I feel so insecure in what I'm doing. And because I feel insecure, I can't offer security to the people in my life. I can't offer security in terms of, even if it's just like financial security, like how am I going to make money off of this? Like how am I going to give back what I'm putting in, basically. So the first line and what I open that song up with is I get insecure, So I kind of having that in my head, I essentially just wrote the song around that. I'm never sure of what I have to give, and sometimes being around people, you can feel like everyone else has their stuff together but you. So I thought, like, you're a superstar and I've got this guitar and that doesn't pay the bills, So it was very much like that when I was writing it. And that song starts off with the chorus. So that's how I wrote that record, and the chorus kind of led into the rap easier. With Try, again, similar, like I mentioned, I had the melody when I was listening to the beat, which was produced by Blue Lab Beats. when I was listening to there's a point in the song where it's just like a and I was like, oh, like that sounds like try, that sounds like that to me. So that was, I guess, more of a melodic thing where it was kind of like, what does the music actually sound like? It sounds like try to me. So having that, I kind of hummed out the song. So and humming it out, I just kind of put words in. It's really weird, like it's like a weird, thing, but artists have their own like methods of doing things, but I kind of like that because it's like very much like a weird artist thing that I feel other artists can kind of appreciate. Like, what do you mean you hummed in the words? Like how do you do that? But that's literally how it happened for me, and I was just literally humming in the words, even down to just the rap verse, like just consciously putting in like an ooh but before I go into the full rap. But that's how that happened. So try very much more melodic, insecure very much kind of, I feel a lot of emotion right now, and that kind of helped me parallel into a full song. So yeah, that's how those two records came about. And actually, I'm hoping to essentially kind of do a song by song breakdown with this project somehow, because I do think it's really nice to hear about how some of these things come about, and I would definitely love to share those stories.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be interested in that type of thing.
Right.
It's always nice to, there's so many ways to be creative and write a song. It's just so interesting to hear how each person does it.
Absolutely.
Something I thought was really cool about writing Insecure, it kind of like you said it started with like being vulnerable,
right,
and that ended up like just like letting yourself be open,
right,
just led to that song coming about.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's funny, this is a people thing in general, but just speaking in terms of art, so many artists have insecure moments, but no one shows that on social media. And if we all just showed it, it would actually be better, because then we could kind of lean on each other.
Definitely.
Right? But since no one shows it, it becomes very much of a what's wrong with me, or why am I going through this, or this is a weakness, instead of it kind of being something that can unite people. So coming from a place of vulnerability, I was like, what song would I want to listen to right now that could kind of just make me feel like it's okay to feel like this? And I wrote that song. So hopefully, I know a lot of people look at the records and automatically just think like, from a love perspective, but even just think from a life perspective, think of Try as, as much of a life motivation song as it is a love song. It's kind of just, trying to put yourself out there, just give it a shot. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't,
Yeah.
And we all have insecurities, that's just a fact.
Yeah, I love what you said. You said, what song would I like to listen to right now? Next time I'm like hitting a roadblock, I want to think about that.
Right.
That's great.
Because do you ever, kind of find yourself just creating content because you would want to hear that and you can't find what you want to hear, So, yeah.
You were talking about how you like go about social media and vulnerability, and that's like something I admire about you, is how you like portray yourself on social media and what you put out there. So I think that's amazing that you are like intentional about that.
Yeah.
And sorry, there's like a cat like meowing in the back.
Yeah, I was like, this is gonna be great ad libs.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Everyone should go follow Justy Music, right?
Yes, Justy Music on Instagram. This is annoying that I ended up doing this, but my Instagram is Justy Music and my Twitter is Justy's Music. So you'll find me on there.
Awesome. How did you start intentionally being vulnerable on like social media? Like, did that just come naturally, or did you decide you wanted to be?
I think that I was kind of just like tired of like the lack of transparency on social media, and to me it's just kind of boring, like everyone can post like the typical kind of like, doing this or this is coming
Yeah.
soon or blah blah blah, but I kind of want to give you a little bit of context behind, yeah, this is coming soon, but this is like how this came about. I want to give context because as people, we're not like, we have more depth than that as people too. So I'm kind of like, if social, let's just say if Instagram is supposed to be reflective of, everyday life or, your passions or whatever it may be, like, can I see more depth, in that and not, just sometimes it's great to just post, just a picture, just whatever it may be. But for me, it's not the quantity of followers that I have, it's the quality. And for me, something that's really important is fan to artist connection, because I know how much that allows people to be successful and how you know personal it can be sharing your music with people. So I just always wanted my supporters to just see like I'm just like a normal, human being, like
Yeah.
like I have a job too. Like I have to go to work, I get sad, I get frustrated and I'm happy. And, I'm going through the roller coaster of this, and so many other artists are as well. So, I'm going to be transparent on my end and just be real about it, because it can help someone, even if they don't directly approach you and say, hey, like, I really appreciate your post on this or that, it can really help them. So I think that's why I do that, honestly.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's like, it's been nice to see, and it's not something you see a lot of, and
Right.
hopefully that starts to change. I would definitely want to do better about that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I've been just like slacking on social media in general, just like trying
No,
to keep up with that so hard.
yeah, I feel that though, because I literally took kind of like a 2 month break. I'm making my Instagram return today. So today is like a good kind of, this is a good start to kind of showing my face to the world again. But yeah, I took a 2 month break. It initially was going to start as just a week, but I noticed I was just like, I was fine. I was fine not being on it. And I was like, wow, I do this because it's what I should have as an artist, but I don't need this in my
Yeah.
life. And it was nice to kind of be away and just focus on my stuff for a second and not worry about, trying to keep up with anything else or anyone else.
Yeah, that's great. I should probably try that.
Yeah, it helps. I'm just saying, it's really nice.
Yeah, so thank you again for, I don't know, just being who you are on social media. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. No, I really, really, truly appreciate that. That's more important to me than, the analytics of my Instagram account,
Yeah, so keep it up if you want.
Yeah, right.
So I'd like to ask you, what kind of role did music play in your childhood?
Wow. So, it's funny because I remember the catalogs they used to, back in the old days, they used to send mail out these catalogs that had CDs in it, and you would check off what CDs you wanted, like, and like mail the check in or whatever, and get your CDs like a week later, right? That's how you used to get music. So my mom would always get those catalogs, and she would usually let me like choose like one CD I wanted or something. So that kind of started my initial like actual investment in music, right? Actually being able to have my own CD, and I still have a few of them around. But yeah, when I was younger, my mom being Jamaican exposed me to reggae at an early age, right? Obviously a lot of Bob Marley, but also just some classic like R&B as well, like a lot of Luther Vandross, a lot of Barry White. And so a lot of people always tell me like I kind of have an old soul, and I think a lot of that comes from my growing up. I still to this day listen to that type of music because I like implementing those sort of soulful sort of melodies into a more contemporary sound, right? That's maybe appealing to, this generation or whatever it may be. So growing up, I was just always listening to music, and I was fortunate enough to take guitar for a little bit, so that got me actually understanding an instrument, like the science of an instrument, and how to take care of an instrument. And I went on to take music theory for a little bit, and get back into guitar, and just kind of really learn to respect music. I think that that's something that I also implement in my passion. I respect music just as much as I am a fan of it, just as much as it is one of my loves. So it's like, it's always been that kind of admiration all throughout my life.
That's really cool to hear. It feels like a lot of times there isn't that respect, and you can kind of hear it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because, eh, I guess maybe industry politics can play into that, but,
Yeah.
I'll just say that oftentimes you do see the people who are genuinely passionate about music versus people who maybe just know what works and use that to their advantage. And, I'm not saying either one is better than the other, but, I'm just speaking for what I do. So, yeah.
Yeah. I well, I'm just thinking right now. I'm kind of like reflecting on like the approach I take sometimes. It's like sometimes, like lately, I've been releasing music and like forcing myself to like just work on a song and then release it, to not
Right.
be like attached, or like to make it overcomplicated. Like I had a problem with that. So I don't know, just trying to do things maybe too quickly, but it also helped me grow. So it's like, I guess some of my values, I kind of sacrificed,
Right.
and to like favor some of my other values at the same time. So
Right.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
no, I feel that, because, sometimes you do kind of find yourself in the space where you're you're trying to add a lot in, thinking that it's kind of like building the record up, but when you I've always found, and I'm not saying this is always the case, but I've always found that less was always more. At least when it came to my music, when I try to complicate things, or just kind of just add a bunch of fluff, it just never seems to really like go right. So I think the sort of just wholeness of one's voice, or wholeness of one's production style, or whatever it may be, adds to your distinctive sound. And just like when I listen to your productions, I feel like your productions are just very you, and that's why I enjoy them. So I feel like that's how my audience feels as well. Like, you accept me for who I am and as I am, and you don't want me to kind of like just throw in this other stuff to distract you.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it is like somewhat just about balance. And maybe sometimes the balance is going to change and be different.
Right. Right.
Is there a time that, changing the subject again, is there a time that you like realized you wanted to pursue music seriously as a career?
Yeah. So I originally started out in a band, and this was like young, like sixth grade, type of thing. Sixth grade to like high school, basically. I guess it was probably around my sophomore year. No one else was passionate about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to figure out, they're not passionate about it, but I still wanted to do it. I still wanted to make music. Music always it just was special to me. It was something that allowed me to kind of express myself, and I wasn't like, super popular in school or anything. So music made me feel visible when I felt very much invisible. So I think realizing that, well, everyone's left my band, someone has to sing, someone has to, it was very much just like a survival thing. Like, okay, well, start practicing your singing, start, practicing guitar more, learn how to record, learn how to mix, so God bless their ears for anyone who has heard my early recordings, but in my early recordings, you can hear, that I'm very much still trying to figure out what to do. And,
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I'm very humble about my process and where I am now is because I remember where I came from, like literally recording. I used to use, I used to record in Audacity, and I used to use like, I seriously literally use like a Rock Band mic. Like for the video
That's
game,
awesome.
yeah, I would use a Rock Band mic, and it was a USB so it could hook up to my computer, and that's what I was recording with. And I my mixing was awful, my vocals were awful, but my passion and my determination showed that I could truly make something out of this. And I always, tell other artists and creatives, like, a lot of the times it's not necessarily the talent. A lot of the times it's usually like who is most determined to get it done, right? Who is consistent, who is determined to go through every loop, every obstacle to make it to the end. So from the beginning, I've just been very determined, and I've grown, and I've blossomed in different ways. But yeah, I started off, really like with nothing. So because I didn't have anything, and I saw how enthusiastic I was about having nothing, I knew that music would be something that I could truly fully pursue.
I mean, that determination definitely like pays off. Like
Yeah.
that kind of attitude of just like
Yes.
figuring it out as you go. That
Yes.
definitely that just helps you so much. Like growing, like just being able to do things on your own without relying on like having to pay someone else to do something. Like
Yes.
that's just so yeah, so worth it to just do it on
Absolutely.
your own, even if it's not professional at first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And something that I'm not really in favor for is, when people are always like, well, you should use this DAW, and you should have this like quality mic, and you should have this tool and that tool. And I'm just like, you're talking to independent artists, like a lot of times these are like college students or high school students. Like they don't have the money for that,
Yeah.
So for me, I always just encourage people, it is not about what you are using, it's about how you're using it. I still record in GarageBand. I love GarageBand. It works for me. I recorded Try in GarageBand. I recorded Insecure in GarageBand later. Every
That's
single song you've
awesome.
heard, yeah, every single song you've heard from Justy has been recorded through GarageBand, right? So Apple, just if you want to sponsor me, feel free. But no, it's truly about how you use what you have, and Steve Lacy records some of his productions on his phone, or iPad. So it's kind of like, don't let what you don't have be, a deterrent to you actually getting your stuff done. Work with what you have for now. And if you want to upgrade as you go along,
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You just gotta. You can always create, no matter like what gear you have, or no matter what like musical training you have. Even if you have none, you can still create beautiful art
Right,
where you're at.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if anything, that's when your talent shines through the most, because being able to create something very polished from maybe a software system that isn't as refined or polished says a lot. So use it as a challenge to yourself if that's all you got.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit earlier about kind of like personal experiences and feelings like influencing your writing process.
hmm
Um, is there times where your like overall worldview or like your just views of the world, does that impact your writing process sometimes too? What you choose to make your songs about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I recorded a record last night, actually. I'll send it to you after this, but I kind of have parts in the song where it's kind of like, are you mad at the world? Like, are you upset that our government is the way it is? Like, just different things that I feel like sometimes people don't think people kind of think about when creating, because a lot of times it feels like the market is very heavily saturated with like love, 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 love,
Yep.
So, it's again, it goes back to just like having depth. Like, I'm a person, like, I'm not just concerned with love 24/7. And, for me, actually, I think it was more conscious for me to make sure I had a larger array of songs that didn't just deal with love for this project, because I wanted people to see that I have thoughts about other things. I have feelings about other things, and those things, are equivalent and hold an equivalent amount of importance to me in my life that love does, that, whatever else does. So yeah, that's gonna be in the new project, which I'm really excited about, because I think it's a nice fresh take for my listeners, and it's the first time I'm kind of consciously making sure that those type of records are on there as well.
That's yeah, I'm excited to hear that. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I
Yeah.
think that's awesome. Something I've been trying to do lately is to like mostly I make instrumental music, but I've been trying to kind of throw in like spoken word, like stuff I'm working on. I
Mm,
want to have spoken word just because I feel like there's so much meaningless or like songs without any like actual thoughts or content.
right.
And I just want to, yeah, I just think it's important to share that.
Right.
So I think it's great that you're being intentional about making that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it was just cool to challenge my pen as well, challenge myself to write about more than, just the easy go-to route, So it's like I don't want to be one of those artists where it's like every single song is about love, 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 It's like, what about you? What about your growing up? What about your
Yeah.
issues? Like whatever it may be.
I think that like that vulnerability is always needed, and
Yeah,
I think that's always going to be what people actually connect to. Like, I
absolutely.
mean, people are always going to connect to love songs too,
Right,
because
right, right.
it's our real experiences as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
at this point, I don't really have any other specific questions. Is there anything you want to talk about, or?
Um, just thank you again for your time, and the platform and just the discussion. It's always nice to just kind of um, talk about this stuff, talk about what you're passionate about, of course, and exchange ideas and thoughts. But no, I've been working on this project, for a very long time, and I'm excited to share it. I'm excited to just get it out somewhere besides my Google Doc, and really just see people's reception to it and see how it makes people feel. A lot of it is about the feeling, and go from there. I can't determine or plan how anything else happens or goes, but I do know it's something that I'm proud of. And, it's like every single day I get closer and closer to being done, being done, being done. So when it's all finally together, I'm going to be really excited to put it out.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah,
And honestly, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciated
of
hearing
course.
about all this stuff.
Of course. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, everyone go check out the album. Follow Justy Music to
Yes.
make sure you can get it when it drops. But yeah, thank you so much again.